I'm extremely pleased to speak with Dr. James Fenton today. Jim is the director of the University of Central Florida's FSEC Energy Research Center, and he's also a professor of materials science and engineering. At FSEC, he leads more than 60 faculty and staff who research, develop, and evaluate clean energy technologies in 6 major program areas, including solar energy, high-performance buildings, alternative transportation, advanced energy systems, STEM education and workforce training, and energy policy research. In addition, Jim is the author of more than 120 scientific publications and a number of chapters of books, and holds 4 patents as well. His education includes a BS in chemical engineering from UCLA and a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Welcome, Dr. Fenton. Very pleased to have you with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Jim, as I am fortunate, because I have followed FSEC for decades, and we designed the mechanical and electrical systems for the original FSEC project. But will you please provide an overview of FSEC, your mission, and your research areas for others who may not be as familiar?
Right. I'll be happy to do that. And I do want to let everybody know that we'll be celebrating our 50th year, this next year. I do like to tell everybody that we were created by the Florida legislature, Florida Solar Energy Center, not by the president of the university. And this was back during the Arab oil embargo, when a lot of us remembered crawling around to the back of our automobiles and looking to see whether it ended in an odd or even number, whether you had the privilege of sitting in line for 2 hours to buy gasoline. All right. And we were concerned at that time that everybody was going to put solar thermal hot water heaters on their roof, which we did. And there wasn't a body that tested and certified that made those kind of like a UL listing, if you will. And so that was some of our creation. And then to do that, also renewable energy alternatives, made in Florida kind of concepts, keeping both the jobs and so forth. And then the best kilowatt hour or the best form of energy you use is one that you don't use, because energy really is like burning money. You hope you get something out of it, but you are burning money when you do it. And so clearly being more energy efficient is a better way to do that and save that, particularly since Florida imports most of all that energy into the state. So our mission and vision is sort of to serve the citizens of the state of Florida, make a difference. And we do that in those research areas, the 6 areas that you sort of put on, but very actively involved with building code, actively involved with K through 12 education. And then some of the sort of demonstrations that go on throughout the state. So we work with Habitat for Humanity to make energy efficient homes. We work with all the electric utilities, the major theme parks, and our advisory board is made up of users, builders, all kinds of folks that sort of are in the energy thrust. And as time goes on, a lot of these companies are trying to come up with sustainability goals. And we at FSEC are trying to help them achieve those. So that's kind of our mission and vision, is to help out then with the use of energy, and you use it wisely in the state.
Jim, I had the pleasure of attending the last FSEC advisory board meeting and was extremely impressed with your vision for Florida. Will you please share some of that vision and what it could mean for the state of Florida?
Well, right now, as I said earlier, we import almost what we call all the primary source of fuels. So for instance, gasoline we import into the state. That's mostly for our transportation fuel. The bulk of our electricity today in Florida is made from natural gas, which also comes from outside of the state. So to spend little to no funds on imported fuels should be a worthwhile goal in the state of Florida. Okay. The only spilling I want on our beach is sunshine.
Amen.
Okay, is where I want. And I'd like to keep all the jobs and the wealth in Florida. Interestingly enough, when you buy a piece of equipment like a more efficient air conditioner, you're spending less money on energy, but you have more wealth because you now have a more expensive piece of equipment. Your house is worth more. Okay, when we talk about putting solar on the roof, people ask me about paybacks all the time. Okay, and by the way, the value of your house went up more than what you paid for it. Okay, which is, as an improvement, is a better improvement than any other improvements you can think of. Okay, but you want to ask what the payback is. Okay, so sometimes it's just the way we think about things. But I'd like to use 100% renewable energy. I'd like to first make our buildings as energy efficient as possible, because then when we lose power during the hurricanes and grids, I need smaller energy backup. It may be that eventually that energy backup is your electric car, because you've got a really big battery in your car, okay, which we're talking about doing 200 miles, but to power your house, it's probably only 100 miles a day, to give you a flavor, okay? So go out and buy an electric car because it's cheaper than what the other option is. Go ahead and put energy efficiency in your house and your solar, and of course, now you already have the battery, all right? And so how we integrate those and work those together is going to be a smart thing. Concerned about the resiliency, at least from an energy point of view. It'd be nice to be able to ride out hurricanes. And then there's the opportunities for other things like aviation. It's difficult to go ahead and use electricity and batteries in a big airplane. So you're probably going to need sustainable aviation fuel, which could be made from hydrogen, renewably made, or biomass, or some other kind of activities on that. And then I'd like to see a lot more high-speed electric trains, okay? Because you can make trains very electric very easy. Okay, we're starting to do that. And we'll start to see hydrogen as a fuel and a feedstock. And then the other thing that I want to point out, it's a vision for Florida, is that currently right now, the clean energy workforce in Florida, predominantly HVAC, but that includes solar, electric vehicles, and other things, is twice as large as agriculture. All right, and so we're just getting started in the clean energy workforce. So we need to be training our workforce like crazy in the state of Florida. The installation jobs are here. Now, I'd rather support companies like Jinko that manufacture the cells here in Florida. Of course, that keeps the wealth here. But I want to remind you, when you buy solar panels, it's making you energy for 30 years. Okay, the payback is 8 to 9 years, but you're getting free energy out of it. And the value of your house has gone up. So I'd rather have it made in the US, rather have it made in Florida, but I don't want you to stop having it, okay? Because that increases the wealth in Florida. And so I think we're moving forward to this. It sort of is encompassing education. It's encompassing using technologies rather than a lot of digging stuff out of the ground kind of stuff. I do remind you that all the battery materials are recyclable and reusable and so forth. In a lot of the cases, even with electric VV batteries, after your 10 years use in a car, it may be the battery that sits in your house. So we'll be reusing these things in addition to recycling these things, which is an area we haven't done so much as a society. So it does requiring integration. And I think Florida is uniquely equipped. One, we shoot rockets up. So, you know, we have airports, so we do need sustainable aviation fuels. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit better with the trains, and I'm upbeat about that. Yeah. We do build more houses than anybody. Yeah. Well, Texas is number one on that. So we have the opportunity to build things that last far into the future as far as how our energy picture may change. I remind everybody, California leads in solar, but at the rate that Florida is building houses, we're going to blow by them. We just got to make sure that we put solar and energy efficiency into all those homes. Okay. So there's a lot of neat opportunities here, and I'm upbeat about the future.
You know, you were talking about workforce development, and a lot of people think of FSEC as a research institution. But, you know, I've been over so many times, and I've sat in on so many of your programs, and the workforce development is such a major portion of what you do. You talked about the clean energy, and the workforce is greater than agriculture, which is, we're known for a lot of agriculture. Right. The programs that you have, you've got everything from degree programs to certificate to training to a lot of others. What all does it encompass?
Well, the interesting thing is that these problems that we're concerned about, an alternative to fossil fuels, moving forward, keeping the money in the state of Florida, you know, it requires an all hands on deck kind of activity. Okay. And we need everybody in all walks of life to engage in this. Energy is a cross-cutting discipline thing. Yes, technology is important, policy is important. Everybody needs to understand this. You know, when we grow up in a society where people are afraid to deal with more than two numbers, it's a challenge. You know, when I've got to explain to you that there's 20 things we got to do and how we do them and okay. So, you know, a lot of that is that educational thing. The opportunity is there. One, with supply chain problems and everything else that we've had over the last several years, you know, manufacturing cars, but you can't get a computer chip, you know, so the cars sit there and so on and so forth. Okay, workforce is going to be one of the biggest limiting activities, okay, at all levels. Okay, so we do a lot of certificate programs and do some things like that, which a university typically doesn't do. We do a lot of K through 12 education. It's getting that future workforce there. We actually run the nation's first solar installer apprenticeship program.
Okay.
Other countries have more apprenticeship programs. We've done that well with electricians. We've done that with plumbers. We're going to need to do that with the energy efficiency technologies. When you make your house tighter and tighter and more energy efficient, it's got to be like watertight. Okay, the way that you're doing that. But that then in turn means that if you've got a heater or something like that and carbon monoxide, then you got to be concerned about those leaks. So this is requiring a lot more education than what we've typically had. So everybody's going to have to up their game, from the construction industry and so on and so forth. And we've got to do that with the workforce. And our community colleges can help do that. Our research universities should perhaps be the keeper of the curriculums and help disseminate that. In a lot of federal funding that's coming out the doors in some of these newer technologies, where the batteries or the hydrogen, or even in the solar kind of areas, there's workforce demands, and there's the impact in low-income neighborhoods and how you deal with all this. And it's a very integrated process. Community benefits, and righting some wrongs that we've done in the past. So, we're engaged in all of that to all various degrees. It is a holistic kind of approach at looking at energy.
Thank you, Jim. This has been fantastic. I always love it. You've come and spoken with committees and everything else. We always go away inspired. So thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.